That's right. It's Cafe Anyway, and I'm Mike, and this is a show where, I don't know,
Mike's Daily Podcast.
we cover some stuff on the podcast called Mike's Daily Podcast. I'm Mike Matthews.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
I bet you there is something that you want to know, and that is what is today's episode. It's 2482, but you already knew because you read ahead. Maybe. Okay, good job. It's Mike.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Yes! What a busy Sunday it's been for me so far. I'm going to try to be
Mike's
daily
Daily
with the podcast
Podcast
this week, but it's not looking so good because there's just so much I see on the horizon for this week. It's going to be busy. But hey, we're going to cover some interesting stuff today. Interesting. Very so helpful things to you. Like, did you hear that Moderna is suing Pfizer? Here we are. Let's see, 2.5 years into this whole pandemic thing. And then was it even a year when the vaccine started showing up? And now the lawsuits start showing up. Because Moderna is suing Pfizer. Now, it was like Pfizer's the German company, right? The German partner. Oh, they have a German partner called BioNTech. It's bio, the letter N, and then tech. It's so fancy. And it is accusing its competitor of copying Moderna's technology to make its own vaccines. Wasn't there a similar thing that happened between Apple and Samsung? Apple going, yo, Samsung copied a bunch of stuff. And then wasn't there a thing between Huey Lewis in the News and Ray Parker Jr.? Oh, Ghostbusters. That sounds a lot like Heart and Soul.
And here's today's podcast
Because
picture.
it's Heart and Soul. We're going to go with another picture from the lovely town of Daytona Beach. I think this will be the last one. It was 4 years ago that I got to have probably one of my last really enjoyable trips seeing my mom. And we were in Florida, my late mom. We had a great time. It was in the hot August, the hottest time in Daytona Beach, Florida weather, but we got through it and had a great time. Oh, and the late great Basil the boxer, he was still able to walk, and my lovely lady friend took care of him while I was in Florida. And he actually, my lovely lady friend was walking him, and he walked my lovely lady friend all the way to the local pet food store. We have here in the Bay Area a chain called Pet Food Express. So he drags her there. she didn't have to lead him. He led her. But I know that trip well. In fact, it was on a similar trip where my wonderful late dog, Basil the Boxer, took me to the dog food place. And then afterwards, as we were walking back, that's when I first met my lovely lady friend. Over 4 years ago now. So, Pfizer and BioNTech vaccine infringes on patents Moderna filed several years ago protecting the technology behind its shot Spikevax, according to Moderna. The infringement lawsuit was filed. The patent infringement lawsuit was filed in a U.S. federal court and in German court. Moderna said Pfizer-BioNTech copied two types of its intellectual property, and that is the one that involved an mRNA structure that Moderna says its scientists began developing in 2010. Yes, over 12 years ago, and were the first to validate in human trials in 2015. The second alleged infringement involves the coating of the spike protein on the outside of the virus itself. A company spokesperson for Pfizer declined to comment. Moderna chief, this according to Metro, by the way, Metro UK, metro.co.uk. Then, Moderna's chief executive, Stephanie Bancel, said, "We are filing these lawsuits to protect the innovative mRNA technology platform that we pioneered, invested billions of dollars in creating, and patented during the decade preceding the COVID-19 pandemic." Good thing they were working on that, huh? So the mRNA is encased in a little ball of fat and instructs the body's cells to make harmless spike copies, which train the immune system to recognize the real virus. That's how that works. Oh, no, wait. I'm sorry. It's all witchcraft. It's all crazy technology developed by the left to create mind control for people on the right. And it's also their way of fixing elections so that Democrats always win. Just like the way Liz Cheney always won. But wait, Mike, she's a conservative. Yeah, but Republicans all hate her because she doesn't kiss the tuchus of a particular tanned fella. Fake tanned fella. What? So an interesting thing happened to me the other day is I created a time machine. And I went back and I grabbed Reagan, Eisenhower, and Nixon, and I brought them to the present. And I said, guys, your Republican Party, wow, still doing great, still strong as can be. Look at all these conservative radio stations that carry nothing but conservative Republican talk. Wow, that's great, that's fantastic, they all said. And then I said, but there's a couple of interesting things as we go outside a cafe anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth, Podcastro Valley 10. Couple of interesting things. First off, we've got this, there was an election that happened, a couple years back now. And in it, there was, of course, there's always a winner, one winner in an election. And in this particular election, this person won, one person won, and then the other person said, no, I don't agree. I think it was all rigged. It was fake election, fake news. So I am still the president. And I'm going to not even congratulate the new president. I'm just going to hop in my helicopter and leave. I'm going to take my ball and go home. To which the three former historical Republican leaders said to me, well, that sounds like something those pesky Democrats would do. That they would not say that the election was real and was a fraud. And no, actually it was your guy. What? Yeah. What? That's impossible. Sounds like he has some kind of narcissistic tendency. Well, I was trying to explain to them that this is how things are now. And then I said another thing too is there was a bunch of people, this is crazy, they attacked the Capitol. A bunch of people from one particular political party attacked the Capitol. Well, that's an outrage. It is. It's an outrage indeed. Do you know what side did it? Please don't tell me. Yeah, no. By the way, who is the president? In 2020, who was the president? Donald Trump. You mean the guy? Well, wasn't he in Home Alone? He was. He had a cameo in Home Alone. He was going to help the little kid, Macaulay Culkin, stay in a hotel or find his parents or something. So conservatives are also frothing at the mouth over Joe Biden's decision to forgive $10,000 in student debt for millions, railing against what they call student loan socialism. But their carefully crafted tweets have been undermined over and over again with two words. This you? Were there ever seven letters more powerful? On Twitter, the phrase is an instant marker of hypocrisy. cutting down the mighty from politicians to celebrities to brands. It typically comes as a reply to an opinionated tweet accompanied by a screenshot of an earlier remark from that same person endorsing the opposite point of view. Now, Biden's debt cancellation has given the phrase new life. This you rolling through Twitter like a bowling ball, toppling critics after the source of many of the receipts, in this case, is the public record of those who had their Payment Protection Plan, or PPP loans, payment protection plans, the federal funds intended to keep businesses afloat earlier in the pandemic, forgiven. The conservative advocacy group that, oh, really? I've heard of them before. PragerU, complicated. It's not complicated. Bailing out irresponsible behavior will spur more irresponsible behavior. This you showed hundreds of thousands of dollars in forgiven PPP funds. And the right wing, apparently, so Prager University Foundation got PPP funds. So you see what they're doing is the bailout from the PPP, similar to the bailout for this debt bailout, saying, hey, look, people have gotten the better end of the stick with certain relief that comes from a government. The right-wing Daily Caller published a piece headlined Biden debt forgiveness could send tuition through the roof, which, by the way, tuition's been going through the roof forever now. It's terrible. I don't agree with it at all. The way universities charge for their education. And let's put it this way, a well-known local college, by the way, wait, let me back up. That whole January 6th thing. Yeah, they attacked the Capitol.
Well, that sounds like what they did in Berkeley. Is it a bunch of people, bunch of hippies that attacked the Capitol?
No. Republicans.
Oh, don't tell me. That's crazy. I told those idiots at Berkeley to stop revolting and rioting. It's a threat to the people in public, the civilian population. Wheel.
Yes. So, back to odd how that flips around, huh?
That's enough. Put down the mic.
So yeah, over there in the wonderful town of Berkeley, there is a, student loan forgiveness sounds really nice to illegal immigrants, people with no experience, people who don't have families, and yet people who preferred pronouns, wrote Steven Crowder. There were screenshots then sent to him with the comment, this you, highlighting more than $71,000 in loan forgiveness for his company. And then Chuck Grassley also criticized Biden's plan, saying it would fuel further inflation, hunting down those who can least afford it unfair. Chuck Grassley. This you asked a candidate for local office, pointing to Grassley's application for a federal farm bailout. So, yes, it's interesting. Now, what was going on in Berkeley? So there was a big fight between our former governor, who then became president, Ronald Reagan, with the people running Berkeley, saying, hey, you guys, you gotta control the students. This is getting out of hand. People are getting hurt and all this stuff. There's video of it on YouTube. But what is interesting is that somebody that I know that works there, who's big on radio and podcasting equipment, and he helps out over there with that, he said, Berkeley isn't really teaching. They're not, with all the money they're charging their students, they're not really teaching them what they really need to know to be a podcaster or somebody in radio. Like, they're teaching all their students, this is how you do radio stuff, do all your radio stuff on Pro Tools. But in reality, most radio stations use Adobe Audition. That's one little fact. Now, it's good to know both of those, but it's fascinating. All of that. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. Should we look at one more thing? One more thing in the world? I just thought it was fantastic that I had and you heard about the Russian-occupied nuclear plant in Ukraine that's on high alert. Has been placed on high alert after power cuts. They've had quite a few power cuts, and now there's evacuations happening. So that story developing. By the time you hear this, you probably have heard a lot more and know a lot more than I do at this moment. Heck, anybody knows a lot more than I do at this point, at this moment. So, Winky sent me something. It's a little bit more uplifting here at this part of the show. And here's what she sent to me in an email. She likes to send things uplifting or things that maybe on the lighter side. The ability to speak several languages is an asset, but the ability to keep your mouth shut in any language is priceless. Be decisive, right or wrong, make a decision. Wow, very well written, Winky. Even though I don't think you wrote that. But still, it's true. The problem that I'm hearing a lot of young people, 20-somethings and 30-somethings, especially on podcasts, especially on radio, when they're being interviewed, they'll be asked a question, and they say something at the very beginning of their statement that is trying to build themselves up. And then, at the end of every sentence they throw in that millennial Genzilla right in there. It's sort of a confidence booster. But like I heard an interview today with somebody who was in her 20s or 30s, and after the question was asked of her, she said, absolutely, 100%. Okay, the reason why, blah, 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 blah. What, the one, I was like, what, 100%? What is that even? It's almost like she was revving up her engines to get ready to answer the question, instead of just answering it and having confidence in it. As wrong as you may be, just have confidence in it. Hey, it's worked for a lot of people. This goes on to say, the road is paved with flat squirrels who couldn't make a decision.
Right? God.
That's sad. Happiness is not having to set the alarm clock. The starting pay is $40,000. Later, it can go up to $80,000. Great, I'll start later. Trust science. Studies show that if your parents didn't have children, there's a high probability you won't either. Wait, what? If you're not called crazy when you start something new, then you're not thinking big enough. And one more. And she highlighted this one. Save business cards of people you don't like. If you ever hit a parked car accidentally, just write sorry on the back and leave it on the windshield. I get it. And when I get a headache, I take 2 aspirin and keep away from children, just like the bottle says. Outside a cafe anyway, somewhere in Podcastro Valley, the last place on earth. Oh, there's so many people here in Podcastro Valleyton. Look. Hello, make a message, Madame Rootabega, and that is fascinating. What you are saying all about that people getting loan forgiveness in different ways. Students get it, but when the other people get it, it's not okay. Oh, yeah, that's just a bit that was what the point of that whole thing was. And by the way, I pulled that from The Guardian. I guess The Guardian UK probably. Matthew Cantor sent that to me. No, actually, my lovely lady friend sent it to me via Matthew Cantor, who wrote it. Okay. Oh, by the way, Daily Caller apparently got some PPP funds, and they were criticizing the whole thing. So anyway, hypocrisy, it runs crazy in the political world. But it's good if we all read a history book now and then and try and calm down and try and listen to each other. You know, we're all going to disagree. You might disagree, but let's talk to each other. Let's get on those conservative talk shows where the people are spouting on and on about this crazy theory and that crazy theory, and say, hey, look, there were a lot of cameras pointed at the Capitol that day, and it was pretty obvious that people walking into the Capitol wanted blood. You could see it. That's what I saw. Maybe everybody else saw that they were going to a flower party, and everybody was bringing their own flowers, and my flowers look better than yours. Maybe that's what we were all looking at. I don't know. Do you like flowers, Madame Rootabega? Yes. Do you like pizza? Yes. Do you like those mixed nuts? No. Yeah, mixed nuts can sometimes, I don't know, I get an upset stomach. Look who else is here.
Hello there, Mike. This is Valentino, the Burger King attendant.
And this is Bison Bentley. Dude!
Mike, this was all really fascinating there, but completely wrong, because there's no way that you could create a time machine there.
Yeah, no such thing. Do you know that? I guess I was trying to make a point. Also, I was using my imagination, which I think people should try to do more often, like we do here at Cafe Anyway, because I really am outside of the Cafe Anyway, somewhere in Podcaster Valley. It's in the last place on earth in my mind. But yeah, we go through these little exercises now and then. I find, don't you find that your dreams get a lot more interesting if you're sick? Or if you got a stomach ache or something else is going on with you? Man, those are fascinating. Okay, so the last podcast we were talking about, I did a lot of ranting about, the young people that are podcasting that lack the confidence, that need to just say, just do it. Just say it. Now, I want to play you something right now. This is me in 1990. So I'm 53 now. In 1990, I was probably about 21-ish. Here is a bit of audio from me being on the air. This was somewhere around 1991, I'd say January 2nd or 3rd or 1st, somewhere in that area. I found this cassette recently. Now, I'm going to play this. I have not listened to this in quite a few years. I may have caught it. I had a cassette player for a while, and I'd play all my old air checks. We call them air checks. When we were on the radio and you recorded, we'd have these machines that would only start recording the cassette when we were talking, when the microphone button, the light was pressed, when the button was pressed, it triggered something that would start recording the tape. So I saved a lot of these tapes. A lot of them mysteriously disappeared, by the way. If I may take one small little footnote for man and woman kind, gender kind, whatever kind, non-binary kind, whatever kind, all the kind bars, everybody out there. I'd like to say this. There was a time I would record every single night I was on. I was on 5 days a week, and I would be on from 7 to midnight, and I would record when I did the Santa Fe Cafe. That show started about 9:30 at night, went till midnight, on the country station in Ventura County called Chely, and I was known as Matt Michaels then. And I recorded every single night, and my plan was, because there were a bunch of cassettes at the station, they just had them laying around, so I'd grab a new cassette, I'd record it, both sides. The cassettes were about 5 minutes on each side. You know how your cassettes, back in the day, cassettes were about a half hour to an hour one side. And then you'd flip it around, you'd have another half hour or an hour on the other side. The ones that were an hour on each side would tend to break, because that was too much tape and too much torque for the average cassette player to use. So, this ancient technology that lasted up until about 2000, 2003. So what happened was I would record all these air checks because I had all these cassettes that were just laying around. I would record the basically 10 minutes, 5 minutes on each side. I would take the cassette, and the plan was to mail the cassette to radio stations. I'd pick a new one since there's so many radio stations all across the country, and my plan was to try and excel and rise up the ladder in the world of radio and to reach the summit at some point. So I thought I'll send out a cassette, I'll record a cassette, and then I'll have all these cassettes, and then I'll mail them all out. Well, what happened was I'd record a new cassette, I'd put it away. New cassette, record, put it away. Next thing I know, I've got boxes and boxes of cassettes, each with a show. And I haven't mailed out any of them. And then I got married. And then my then wife said, you got to get rid of these. So I took them from home. I brought them to the station. The radio station I worked at was pretty big. It had a lot of space inside. It had a lot of cubicles that nobody used. So I shoved a bunch under one cubicle that nobody used. And then one day I discovered all the tapes were gone. And I found out later that they just threw them away. Oh, it hurt. It hurt. Still hurts to this day. But I should have been smart and mailed them out. In the end, the plan wasn't to keep those cassettes anyway. They were supposed to go out and get me a job somewhere. Maybe in Wisconsin. Is that where Liz Cheney's from, by the way? Because that's an interesting state. Not voted. Here you got this very courageous woman. And they said, no, she's causing too many problems. And she doesn't care about what's happening in our home state. No. In Madison, Wisconsin, I went Canadian, Wait, sorry about that. Why did I go full Canadian? Well, I guess that's over the border and a little bit north. But here's the thing. Why? And Liz Cheney is going to run for president. And her primary loss signals trouble for traditional conservatism, according to Yahoo News. But the point is that I still have a lot of cassettes. And my plan is, since cassettes will crumble, will disappear, the tape will disintegrate, and it'll become more and more likely that when you play a cassette, the tape will get all garbled and break and snap, and becomes incredibly difficult to fix a cassette once it's broken. Plus, they take up space. So at some point, I want to get all my cassettes onto digital, like the way I'm recording now. I'm recording straight to digital. So I'm recording all these cassettes to digital. Now, I discovered today I was recording one of these cassettes to digital. And I only caught a little bit of this, and I thought, this doesn't sound good. This doesn't sound like a good representation of Mike Matthews. But this is how I was over 30 years ago. So cut me some slack. Over 30 years ago, use my words against me, as Lindsey Graham said. But this is what I, for some reason, thought was the right thing to say on the radio. So here we go. Oh boy. And this is on Y97. And on either side of this, I know, so I just heard about half a second of In Excess's Disappear. There was some awesome music coming out in 1990 and 91, just before grunge. There was some good stuff. Anyway, here we go. Cafe Anyway.
Y97, hello, what are you doing?
Well, I heard you were defending the world against aliens. I need help.
What's wrong?
Well, I think there's one in my bed.
Oh no, fair listener.
Oh, sorry, it's my husband.
That sort of slip-up happens all the time.
Does it?
Yeah, I get calls like that all the time.
I always thought you could tell the difference. I couldn't there for a minute.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, but thanks for calling.
Okay.
Oh my God, that was beautiful. What am I saying? That was... I just heard in my bed is what I heard earlier, but it was her husband. Ha ha ha. Michael Mechanics! Woo! That had come out about 5 years before that was recorded. But that was me, 21 or something like that. That you gotta admit, that is 90% better than most of the DJs you hear on the radio these days. Even though my voice sounded horrible, it's the content, the joy, the vive de la verve. The verve pipe was there. Well, actually, the verve pipe didn't show up for another 5 or so years, but still. Ugh. What? At any rate, so we learn, hopefully. There's an expression that I heard in high school. And somebody said it, and once after they said this statement, they said something completely that I would never, ever stand behind. They said they had some position on something that I was like, wait, what? But they said the following. They said, you haven't seen the years. And they were much older. And then they made some stand on they proclaimed some political statement I thought was nuts. But still, that is true. You haven't seen the years until you've seen the years. So somebody 53 compared to someone that's 21, they haven't seen the years. So, but there have been some interesting years, and hopefully you've learned from all those years. Well, I think we should wrap up the show with what we call Mike's what is this called? The Mike Matthews New Tunes Feud. Let's play a song from Bria Jean. Okay, so this is our first contestant, Bria Jean. I see a lot of pictures of Bria Jean, but I don't actually hear her. Okay. It's saying go to YouTube. All right, we'll play it on YouTube. Hopefully YouTube will allow that, even though they don't allow me to upload songs. All right, here's Bria Jean. All right, that's called Belonging, Bria Jean. And she is up against... Who else sent me something? And it's so nice. You can always email me, mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. Miles Hewitt. Miles Hewitt. Okay, let's see. We're going to... It's here. We're going to play... we're going to hear a song from it. This is called Heartfall. Heartfall or a Moon. Actually, the album's called Heartfall and the song is called Moon Greening. So which one did you like better? Miles Hewitt, that's Miles, M-I-L-E-S, or Bria Jean? You can call me 336MM Daily. 3 + 3 = 6. MM as in Mike Matthews, Daily as in what this podcast tries to be and may not be able to do this week with all the stuff happening. But hey, you can listen to this over again or go back and listen to the other 2,482 or so podcasts that I've done and go back there and listen to them. And you can find all that at mikesdailypodcast.com. And with where to email me and contact me and all the rest of the stuff, here's A-Frame.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye.